On April 2nd, 1999, a new sport arrived at the Peoria Civic Center when the Peoria Pirates took on the Madison Mad Dogs in the inaugural game of the Indoor Football League. The fast-play, high-scoring game, combined with the unique personality of the Pirate players and head coach Bruce Cowry, created an electric environment. The community quickly embraced the success of the team, packing Carver Arena and helping the Pirates win 2 championships in the first 4 years, including a perfect 17-0 in the 2000 season. From the opening kickoff, a sport, a coach, and a team brought together the Peoria community in a way that no other minor league sports team had. On game nights, everyone wanted to be a Pirate. Now, 25 years later, this video tells the story of the Peoria Pirates through the memories of those that supported and cheered on the team. It's created to honor the players, coaches, staff, fans, and community members that made it all possible, and to memorialize the legacy of the team. The Peoria Pirates. On game nights from 1999 to 2009, they played in Peoria.
Well, the origin's pretty simple. Here's a copy of an envelope, 9x12 envelope, 9x10 envelope sent to my mother by my mother in Iowa City about the Iowa Hawkeye basketball team. And I had it in my briefcase. I was promotion manager of the National Football League. I and another colleague went down to Madison Square Garden on February 11th, 1981 to watch indoor soccer for the first time. It was a major soccer league all-star game. And early in the second period or late in the first period, and I only had one Shaver's beer, the local beer of choice in the garden, I turned to him and said, you know, if you can play soccer indoors on AstroTurf, why not indoor football? And he said, how would you do it? And I pulled this envelope out of my briefcase, and I drew up a hockey rink, and all these notes on the side, you probably can't see in the glare of the camera, this little H up here was the skinny goalpost, and there's nets on either side. The ideas kind of flowed out of me on this very crude sketch and notes, and I talked about Iron Man football, playing both ways, like the old days, to reduce the size of the roster. And we had a lot of success with the nets because there was nowhere else in a football game ever that had been played where you could watch a guy take literally a rebound off the net in the end zone, and you couldn't down the ball, you had to bring it out. The advancing team couldn't go into the end zone until it was touched, but it made for some really exciting football that nobody had ever seen before.
We did a test game in Green Bay after my team played there all season basketball. We were lucky if we got 1,500 fans for a basketball game. And I did a test game, let me use the arena for free, and I had Madison suit up against Green Bay, full, packed, for a test game. And Bob Knight's son Pat was sitting there with me, and he just shake his head because we did so much to try to bring people in for basketball. And he's like, he goes, cheeseheads, you strap a helmet on, they'll come out for it.
Bruce Cowry and Tom Tomaszewski came to my office and threw out the idea of bringing an indoor football game team to Peoria. And it all started there.
Peoria was ready for it, and I was surprised. I didn't know what the reaction would be, but people were ready for indoor football.
And I think we just needed something as a community to get people together. And you said Peoria Pirates, and people were there. People were coming. People were a part of the action because they wanted to be a part of the action.
When the Pirates first came to Peoria, they didn't have a front office. So we farmed out Brad Browning to be the general manager of the team, I think the first year at least, if not the first 2 years. As gratifying as anything to bring them in and secure the team, but then to provide that service to them of running the front office to get them off the ground.
Then, of course, the game was exciting and it was loud. That was what I remember, was that there were motorcycle introductions, and the PA announcer was just about blowing his vocal cords apart as he was introducing people, and it was just it was unlike any really other atmosphere.
One of the things that was so great was the media and how they covered us. You know, Dave Aminian did such a phenomenal job, and I'm so fortunate because he did a bunch of cool stuff on me, and I get it. It's just cool and neat to see how Dave interacted, you know, and he was a part of the team. He was on our bus with us as we went to the long trips, and it was just great talking to someone who had that much sports knowledge. I look at it from a TV perspective. Lee Hall and Kurt Pegler were just involved so deep with it. It was always fun seeing the Pirate highlights, and you know they ran long. right? Because we'd score 11 or 12 touchdowns. And, the other one, again, as we started looking at Ed Hammond, the voice of the Pirates, just a great advocate for the sport and the game. And his heart was just in it every minute, and you could hear it through. And that's another thing, the fans, those that didn't go with us on the road, they got to live it through him. And just the way Ed did it was just incredible.
Kerry Eklund, who owned a trucking company up in Wisconsin, created the Indoor Football League and owned all or most of the teams in that league. Bruce Cowdrey was his director of player personnel for that league and his primary coach. And those guys were looking for markets, looking for markets in the Wisconsin neighborhood. And they came down to Peoria, and I remember meeting Bruce for the first time and asking him, do you think this can work here? And he said, Kerry Eklund says it can work, and if Kerry Eklund tells me a mouse is going to push a peanut up a hill, I'm going to get a lawn chair and wait for it to happen. And that was the first, what I used to call Cowdreyisms.
Looking in hindsight, a lot which made the cities successful was your relationship with the local newspaper.
David Minnie was a powerful guy in the market for sports. I mean, he was kind of the oracle from a print standpoint, really even beyond that. And I knew when I came down here from the beginning that if I didn't get him on board, we were going to have a problem.
Dave, I would say he was key. His articles were the article that you wanted to read about what was going on, what happened, what's his opinion, whether you agree or disagree. I would say his articles were key.
Here's what. David Minion knew more about the Indoor Football League than any person on earth, including me. He researched those players. He spent time and time putting together the yearly brochure that came out. He knew every fact about every player. I'd call him all the time. I'd say, Cleve, who's this guy? And, 15 minutes later, I'd have a complete dissertation on him.
I don't think anybody ever thought that it would take off the way it did in Peoria. Peoria became the mecca of the sport outside the AF1 level. It became the epicenter. And nobody drew the way the Pirates drew here.
I went to the very first Peoria Pirates game because my daughter was one of the original cheerleaders, and I went to watch her. And from the first minute or two, I was hooked. It was a fun game. It was small, so you felt like you were right there, and the excitement was just everywhere. So I think that's what hooked me at first, was that whole feeling that everybody was in it together, having a great time.
I'm a diehard Packer fan, so I know what a football team can do to a small community. Green Bay and Peoria are very similar sized towns. And I said, wouldn't it be cool if Peoria had a pro football team? And when the Pirates came here, it rocked.
It was a golden age, really, of that era of minor league sports in Peoria. I mean, people have talked about what a great sports town Peoria is, halfway between St. Louis and Chicago. And of course, you've got the great high school, junior college, and college sports. But at that time, the minor league sports were great. They had just built Dozer Park, and the Chiefs, had Yadier Molina, and they won a championship, and the Rivermen had just won, a championship in the ECHL. And then here come the Pirates, and they're successful. What they win? Their first 11 games in 1999, their first out of the gate to introduce your product to Central Illinois. We're going to win, and we're going to win again, and we're going to win again, and we're going to win again, and you're going to want to come back. And it was, I think, contagious. People were like, I'm going to go to a game tonight, and I'm going to enjoy this. It gave us great content, and the fact that the team was winning, they had personality, it was fun. There were a lot of reasons to kind of get pulled into that whole Peoria Pirates thing.
I think that there was something in the air, and I think there was just a general excitement that, hey, our town's going to have this team, and this is what it's going to be. And it was different because there's constant scoring and so much fun going on. So I think I just remember that first season in particular, and it was just an event, a lot of fun, pure entertainment from the get-go.
We didn't have football here, so a lot of Peoria folks don't like to go to Chicago. You're not going to drive to Indy. Who knows if the Rams were in St. Louis at the time, but this was a football team.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have a football team at Bradley, so you came to a Peoria Pirates game.
Mm-hmm.
So getting the Pirates and knowing that we were going to have something unique and special for Peoria, Illinois, and having this league, we got involved right away. I want to say the meetings were starting, and we started coming up with all these ideas. And immediately there was great creative ideas about promotions. Hey, we can do some really fun stuff, which tied in beautifully with what we were doing as radio stations at that time. People fell in love with the Pirates right out of the gate, and I feel like hopefully our encouragement of what we did on the rock radio side helped fuel that. And we saw a lot of our what we consider our diehards of the radio station that became diehards of the Pirates. So we were all cohesive, and I think that I was really proud of everything that we did in those years, promotionally, and it all showed through. I think everybody won, in terms of how we wanted it to go.
The excitement of when they just crush each other into the boards, the uniqueness of having the hockey boards there and the short field just made it exciting and fast-paced and tempoed.
Oh, and Ed Hammond on the radio. He was another one. He was a super fan, I would say, as well, but he had good coverage. He understood what was going on, so his voice was kind of connected with the Pirates as well.
I remember the first game the Pirates played at home. It wasn't on radio. I was in the stands. I was over there in what's now 205A, 205B, sitting up there in the upper bowl and seeing the first kickoff. And of course, the kicker from Madison breaks his leg in the first play of the game. And I remember Dave Murphy, who also worked at the radio station we were at the time, WOAM, and he was in the stands too. And we both pretty much had the same idea. It's like, oh, we got to do this. So we both went to Bob Kelly, the owner of the station, that following Monday en masse. Hey, we've got to do this before somebody else picks it up.
Blown back is Bonner in motion. Calhoun. The handoff goes to Robinson. He's going to throw into the end zone, and Milton through deep, and he catches it for the touchdown. The big play. The handoff over to Cedric Robinson, and the running back throwing the pass.
Got involved with the Peoria Pirates, ironically enough, through Tim Simpson. He and I were at Bradley University. We were in a class preparing to take the test to get into the master's program at Bradley. And he turns around and looks at me, he's like, McDonald. And he's like, hey, there's a new football team coming to Peoria. I want you to be a cheerleader. Okay, whatever that means. And so we all came together, all ages. I mean, I was fresh out of college. And
I was a mother of two at the time.
I wasn't going to say
the shortest and the oldest at the same time.
My first game seeing an arena football game or an indoor football game was working it. Of course, we had practices leading up to that. But yeah, I go from Hallis Hall, Soldier Field, Green Bay, Lambeau Field, and traveling with the Bears and seeing surgeries and being there every day with an NFL team to, practicing at 9 p.m. on basketball courts, on tartan services or on in indoor soccer fields. So it was an eye opener for me. And my big thing was there's gonna be a lot more injuries. Those guys are gonna get tackled into the boards. There's gonna be what am I getting myself into? And it really didn't turn out to be a higher percentage of injuries. It was football injuries and it's stuff that you expect. But I thought the boards would be a huge deal. And the high motion man, I thought that would be collisions and concussions and things like that. But it turned out to be regular football, and I fell in love with it. It's a great sport. It's high speed. Lots of points being scored, so it was a fun experience for sure.
The interesting aspect to the point to me, I guess, is like it was almost like a combination of football and hockey because you still had the boards. You could run guys into the boards.
I was asked to do this by Brad Browning to do the PA announcing. I didn't really know. It was all new to everybody, right? And so we all were like, hey, we're going to go play some football inside the arena. That would be great. And then I asked Brad, I was like, what am I supposed to do? He goes, be as loud as you can. He goes, that's what I need. I need you to be loud. And so I just went for it. And from the first play, of course, everybody remembers, I think, the first play, a guy's leg gets broken on the other team, the Madison team, right? The kicker, I think he was, right? And I'm thinking, we are going to see some stuff here.
There was that era when Bradley was doing very, very well on the court. The Rivermen were doing very well and won championships. And then to have the Pirates come in with really almost a sellout every game was just icing on the cake.
From a media perspective, the Pirates were attractive because there were so many parts. There was the coaching staff, Tony Johnson, Bruce Cowdrey. Tony was approachable. Bruce scared everybody. So we didn't never know what was going to come out of his mouth. That was always great. That's exciting. That media people love that. They don't want it to be the same all the time.
The opening or the electricity that was going through, it was like WWE met football. And every person came out with a different personality, albeit the same music, a little something different. I mean, you never thought you'd see a guy walk out with 2 dogs, right, with chains going through. Again, I goofily wore a mask, and it was fun because the skull and, represented the Pirates.
I think that the essence of what was good down here was that this market tended to rally around the team and stay with it.
I think that Peoria was obviously very hungry for football. That I underestimated. So they were hungry, and so the fans get there early. They fill the seats, and there was an electric, nice buzz.
It was true entertainment. As much of as Bruce Cowry would say, this is football, it was entertainment. It was absolutely entertainment.
A lot of times I do sponsorships and stuff, not for business reasons, but for community reasons and being part of the community. And I knew that, the Pirates were coming in and, were getting established in Peoria. I wanted to support it. Built relationships and friendships with, Bruce and a lot of the staff. And so it was a no-brainer. I mean, it was, something that I thought was the right thing to do. It was a fun thing to do. A lot of them are lifelong relationships.
Back in the day, 1999, the Pirates would often come on our show to promote the weekly, game that was coming up. And I was always kind of surprised that they woke up at that early hour because we wouldn't have that much time with them on the air, but we'd have to wake them up at 6 o'clock or something. So either Bruce Cowry or Tony Johnson would lasso one of the guys and bring him in. And so that was kind of our involvement early on. That and the Treasure Life program that Tony Johnson started.
The whole setup from the entertainment around it, the activities around it, the game itself, it wasn't just for sports fans. It wasn't just for football fans. It was for people who wanted to enjoy something, people who wanted to be a part of the community. So male, female, young, old, family, single, it had a little something for everyone. And I really liked that welcoming aspect of it.
Every 5 seconds we were running a play, and it was not into the huddle, but get the play, get to the ball, snap it and go, because the more plays you got, the more points you scored.
Tim Simpson, he's having some fun down there.
It's an offensive game. It's built and wired to be a basketball score. 56-52, scores in the 80s. That's what is supposed to happen. But the Pirates broke the game with defense. They had shutouts. I mean, who throws a shutout in an indoor football game?
First impressions was the release time, the short field, so the routes was shorter, which gave the quarterback less time. For a pass rusher, it was one-on-one, so those was an opportunity to actually pass rush, 90-something% of the time.
Rough and tumble, smash mouth football kind of experience resonated with a lot of the people. They have hockey, but it was just a different kind of deal. You could get close, there's no screen, you could catch a ball, you could feel the energy on both sides of the bleachers instead of being covered with that glass. You walk out, there's 6,000 people, and the light hits. I've got the sword going, and they start screaming. It's amazing. Then all of the fireworks go on, and the pyro, and the guys come charging out. The girls are all dancing around. It could go from being down 20 points to being up by 15 points in a matter of what seemed like minutes. You could be down, everybody be, oh, it's terrible, we're getting ready to go home. It's like, no, we're not going home.
I had the privilege of being involved with the Pirates at the time that the Pirates came to Peoria. I was the executive director of Eastside Center, which became the unofficial practice facility for the Pirates. I think the magic of the whole thing was people could actually reach out and touch these people. You had coaches standing on the sidelines, conversing with the crowd. People jumping into the stands and balls flying into the stands. It was personal. It was fantastic.
I felt like I was part of the team. The players' interaction, the coaches, the other medical staff, it was like a family unit, and you become more than just a fan. You're right there in the locker room, and no matter what happens, good and bad, you feel it.
I think it was because we were so close. I mean, people patted them on the helmet and smacked their shoulder pads and all of that. I think that closeness, even though if you were sitting 10 rows up, you felt you were in that game yourself. You could hear them, obviously. Everybody was screaming, which was great.
I give Coach Cowdrey credit because he did find better players and they stepped up to the task. I remember the first time they came up to play, the initial Warren 74 battle game, and I came to the arena early and there were 10 charter buses lined up, and I thought this must be for something else going on in downtown Moline, some festival or something. No, it was 10 charter buses of Peoria Pirate fans, and I knew that the Pirate fans were pretty loyal to the team down here. But boy, those fans, they were raucous. It was really, really interesting, that first game, and it was a battle. They were bound and determined they were going to put the damper on us, which they eventually did. And of course, they won the league in 2002. So they stepped right into the competition, and it was very exciting, the rivalry with them.
Skull and crossbones. Black and silver. That was the ultimate flex combination, and very, very intimidating, very relatable. I think that was a home run combination from the get-go. But I also think want to football. You know, those guys were getting paid $200 a game, or as the great Ken Bowie once made sure I understood, $187.50 after taxes. You know, they were throwing their bodies around in a confined area, and you had to want to play the game. And when I think about the Peoria Pirates, I think about guys who got an opportunity to chase a dream, to play pro football, maybe climb the ladder somewhere, and were really devoted to the game and to pursuing that. And that's what they were all about.
That's another Peoria Pirates. 1, 2, 3. First down. And it's not like a regular football game. You know, it's not. You're enclosed and you're in an arena and it's smaller and it's louder and it's hard for that other team to concentrate.
And then all of a sudden, the game would be ready to start. The lights went down and the roar just started.
Yes.
Harleys came in, roaring around. They parked them. We got off them and we did our little tunnel for the guys to come out. And it was just hilarious. They had great entrances, each of the players. Every player came out and the roar got louder and louder and louder. And then of course the lights came up as well after that. But yeah. It was electric in here.
It was chaotic. The fans were intense, absolutely intense.
So yeah, when the lights went off and the intros were getting ready to start, just the overall energy within the Civic Center was awesome.
It had a big tent atmosphere. I remember that first night, the moments leading up to that game, and it was a palpable buzz in the grandstand. People wanted to see what this was going to look like.
I think people liked scoring. I think they loved the fact that you could put somebody like Cedric Robinson in the open field and let him go crazy and let him do what he was going to do. 6 touchdowns in a championship game, that kind of thing. So I think people loved the fact that you could score from any yard line on the field, and I think they didn't want to see 10-7. They wanted to see 65-60, and they saw that.
I remember that first kick, just watching that ball go up into the rafters and thinking, this is really cool. And it was on after that. And I think a guy got hurt on that first play too.
He broke his leg.
Yeah, broken leg. The first play in the history of the franchise.
And I mean, it was just incredible. I'm sorry for him, but it was so exciting for the crowd. There was a lot of action in the crowd, in the stands, but it was respectful, and we had very few problems from people drinking too much or getting rowdy in the concourses or outside the building. Very, very few issues from a security standpoint.
You didn't hear, a lot of bad language or anything like that. I mean, it was just really, it was a family in every sense of the word. You could bring your family to the game, but while you were there, you were all one big family.
Come with a girlfriend, come with 10 girlfriends. But it was a place where you wanted to be here. And it didn't matter what your gender was at the time. I mean, this was just exciting. And you nailed it. I think the fact that they could actually meet the guys, I mean, that was always...
Yeah.
I brought people, because we'd have tickets, and I'd bring people that hadn't been there, and then they wanted to go to the next game and the next game and the next game. So then my tickets got used up. But I mean, it was an instant, hit for people that just, the attraction. I mean, they hadn't seen something like this, especially live.
Once I was done playing, it was sort of bittersweet. But the great thing about it was I got to become a fan. And I got to become one of those guys that were yelling and cheering on and being part of the energy that was there. Lightning in a bottle. It was so much fun. The people, I don't think we ever sat in the seats from when they came out of the tunnel to when the whistle blew at the end. And it was fun.
Playing against Peoria, coming in 2000, came down from Duluth and we're playing in, and you walk into the Civic Center and just see an awesome environment, and everybody's right on top of you. So I remember catching a pass right in front of the fans. I got tackled into the wall, and I look up and there's one of my old high school coaches and one of his buddies, all decked out in Pirates gear, and they were getting after me for that play. But just an awesome environment. The crowd coming into Peoria, playing against them, the crowd was just pro Peoria. You were definitely an opponent. You were definitely treated lesser, I guess, than the players of Peoria. But the fans were just great. They got after you, but they weren't to the point where they stepped across any lines.
The fans were the accelerant that just lit everything up and made the environment what it needed to be. It was your extra home field advantage. That was a real home field advantage. But also it was a reason why people wanted to play here, because in other arenas it wasn't like this.
The feeling, the vibe, the sound in this empty place right now when you've got 7,000 to 10,000 people, just the energy, the flow, when you can go from the opening ceremony to the final touchdown, and these people are still screaming. They don't want to go home. They want to have another beer. They want to sit and talk to the guys. They want to get autographs. So 45 minutes to an hour later, we're still trying to get out of here. Everybody wants to go home. They're tired. They've worked, and they're like, no.
I remember sitting way up in the nosebleed section, and the place was packed, and the energy was just through the roof. And everybody in the arena was having a good time. So it was really easy to become a fan, especially in Peoria. And I don't know about other teams, but the Peoria players, they were kind of larger than life, and they interacted with the fans. The fans had a lot of excitement. The crowds were big. There was a lot going on. We even had a dance team. We had motorcycles. We had just some iconic things happening. And I think the community just embraced it as their own.
The players were very accessible. After the game, people go out and on the field and they take pictures have pictures, and players would sign things. I think that's made it a little more interesting to the fans too, is that these just weren't guys that they were just seeing on the field and then you go home. You could actually go down and see them and talk to them and see they were human beings in the football uniforms. I think that's made it a little more intriguing, as well as the sport was personable to people. They could really get involved into the game that way, other than just yelling and screaming for 2.5 hours.
We achieved what a lot of other organizations are trying to achieve, where it's a connection and between the community and the product that's on the field, where they're giving back to you and you're giving back to them, and then this synergy is created where you got a high performance situation, and that was able to last for a number of years. That was the formula, or the two pieces of the equation that have made this such a good experience.
We went to some of the away games, and that whole environment at the Civic Center with the Pirates was completely different than any other arena that we went to. We were loud and noisy and involved, and they were like, oh, nice play, like they were watching tennis, and we're like, no, you're watching the Pirates, man. This is what you do.
The Peoria Pirates had no boundaries. Everybody went to those games. I've never seen anything in this Central Illinois community that touched more people and brought them in, and that more people enjoyed going to those games. And I've been covering sports here for 40 years, and they were unique in that sense.
It was a great representation of Peoria. I mean, you had everybody that wanted to be a part of that environment. CEOs or your Harley riders, everybody wanted to be a part of that game day environment, and it gave the community a rallying point. You know, sports, as we know, tend to draw people together from all places, and that's exactly what the Pirates did. And they were embraced by the community, and the community loved and supported, and you know, it was just a great situation.
It just seemed like people, the community, felt that they were on the field along with the Pirates, even if you're sitting at the top row.
Inclusive experience. You didn't just buy a ticket, go watch a game, and then go away. You were involved. As a fan, you were involved, and you felt like you were helping.
It was just a wide variety of fans that were here too. You had kids, you had adults, their moms and dads, grandma and grandpa was here. All walks of life, no matter what income level that you were in Peoria, you were at the game. And you might have been sitting next to a doctor or lawyer or CEO or something on one side and kids on the other. And it was a community rallying point. Everybody needed to go to the Pirates game that Friday or Saturday night.
And the amount of women who came to the games was incredible. I don't know what was happening with that, but it was cool to watch. They were in it, man. They were in it to win it.
I remember little kids in particular just jumping up and down, running around the aisles, being crazy and having a blast, and their parents having a blast right along with them. So I think that was something that was kind of unique, that it didn't matter if you were 5 or 50, you were being entertained at a Peoria Pirates game.
It was part concert, part sporting event, and part festival, because you were seeing your neighbors at this event, and it was just fun.
It was a legitimate, fun thing that I wanted to be engaged with, and our whole radio station and all the folks that played a role on our team then were legitimate fans.
A Haley's Comet type of moment, or the perfect type of storm where it just, I don't know, it's hard to recreate that. I think that's what people in professional sports are trying to look for, no matter what, where you get community buy-in, and then the product on the field makes the fans come in, the people wanted to play here because of the fans, and you would never think that existed, you know, here, but it did, and it was a very, very pleasing experience to be a part of it.
With interaction with the fans, I think of fans like Mike Biga, who was just, you know, rest in peace, but he was just a great fan, and we had so many of those guys that were down in the first few rows up to the rafters. And it was nonstop go for them, and going through and high-fiving them smacking you on the head when they go by. And again, if they had a player that went over, they'd throw him back a little more tougher than they would our guys. But it was just cool. And, you know, for me living in town, seeing people around, hey, that's Tim Simpson, he played with the Pirates. And it's funny because 25 years later, we're still doing the same thing.
My son, you know, he was only 10 or 11 at the time, and he was like this little mascot for the fans, and he always sat next to Mike Biga, who was like the fan extraordinaire, who came in full gear, you know, with spikes and face paint and everything. And they would just sit together and have a great time.
Mike Biga is another one of those huge figures that is just this towering, hulking, screaming behemoth of a man. And he brought energy, he got everybody into it. And then to meet him as one of the softest, gentlest, nicest guys, the little kids would come up and they'd be afraid, and he'd be like, no, come here.
The fans, well, the team, of course, but the fans from the very beginning, and in particular, one guy, he's from a hometown of Pekin, he dressed up, he banged on the side, he hollered, he probably scared the other team half to death. They probably thought he was coming in. He was kind of a big guy himself. I loved every second of Mike.
My name is Avery Biga, and I was the second mascot to the unofficial mascot of the Peoria Pirates. I was his daughter.
I remember what happened on the first. We were late going because Mike was getting out of a coffin that day. So that was like the beginning of what he was going to be at the Peoria Pirates games.
I feel like I knew what the vibe was going to be after a couple games of going, and he always promised that there'd be juice boxes, so I had unlimited access to those. So I was always looking forward to it, and going into the arena. Welcome to the Jungle was playing, and it's just like once you got in there, the vibe of the room shifted, and you just like. You turn into a different person that people probably don't know you like on the regular day.
What pops into my mind when you say Peoria Pirates immediately is my uncle.
It was just that time frame was something that brought our family together. We had that in common. We looked forward to it.
Definitely remember kickoffs the most because that was like where everyone was pumped up and Dad was banging the sides, screaming at Pirates, obviously, and just like, come on, let's go. It's like, let's get it. And I remember, I don't know who number 2 was, but number 2 was my lucky number. So I was just always like slapping his head if I could reach it. I was like, let's go. You're my lucky number.
Mike was I would call Mike, he was a super fan. I mean, he couldn't play the game because I think he was past that age, but he loved football so much, and he was so enthusiastic and loved, dressing up, and that was his way of feeling like he was part of the team, I think. And, people got to know him, and kids would come up to him and they would actually ask for his autograph, which was funny. So he would make special things for them. He gave out little rings and bracelets, and he enjoyed that because he was loud, he was obnoxious, but he's really just a big teddy bear. And he just enjoyed looking forward to that. I think for him, probably it was just like everyone else, kind of a stress reliever, something to look forward to that night. You knew you had plans, make it through Friday and get to the game. That was his big agenda. Just hurry up, Avery, get ready. Let's get to the game.
I remember him like specifically going to Halloween stores and getting stuff for it, like Hobby Lobby even. Like we were going all these craft stores to find all the studs on them. But like he would take apart the weapons at like Halloween stores and put them on. Like that's like what's on the chest piece and stuff. Like any cool weapons that had skulls on them, he was like, yeah, that's going on the shoulder pads. And he would make extras too, because that's something else that I thought was cool. He would make stuff like lifting gloves for lifting weights and stuff. He would bedazzle those basically, and he would give them out to kids that were like just meeting up like getting extra beers and stuff. He would just hand them out. He had extras in his pockets and stuff, and especially going to the Halloween stores and getting like the baby toys, like the big binky that he could hang out the front. Oh my gosh, the big baby bottle. He's like, I don't know if I can bring this in, but I am. And I was like, okay. I'm not going to say anything.
So my son wasn't born yet during that time frame. But what's interesting with Mike, his shoulder pads that he came up with, my son Logan actually used those at our community football games, and so he wore them to one of the games, and he painted up his face, and he knew my Uncle Mike, but he didn't know that part of my Uncle Mike from that time frame. But he knew him, and he thought he kind of has a little bit of Mike in him in that respect, where he likes to get loud at games. He wore the shoulder pads, painted up his face, and went to Pekin High School football game. And so I really felt like my uncle was there with us during those games. And I guess you could say a little bit of the Peoria Pirates as well.
We definitely see the legacy being channeled through the younger generations, which sucks that it's done now, like the Peoria Pirates aren't playing anymore, because it's obvious that these kids would have loved to see them play for sure and like dress up with him and stuff and go to the games. I definitely feel like the legacy lived through with him for sure.
Boy, I miss Bigga. It's amazing, but my God, what a great guy. I mean, I always used to tease him. I said, hell, as big as you are, come play. He scared you sometimes if you saw him and looked at him with that war paint on. But what a good man. God, we hated to lose him.
A guy by the name of Bruce Cowry. He was pretty much my main guy there. He worked for me in Madison the year before. He was an assistant coach in Madison. And then when we told Bruce that we were looking at Peoria, Bruce was all in on that town. And pretty much whatever Bruce said came true. That guy, he knows football, and he knows marketing. He's a very, very smart guy. And he was the perfect guy for that city. Played in the NFL, had a lot of experience.
Coach Cowdrey was the guy, was the reason why everyone came here, right? He had a unique ability to source and find talent, and then his personality and his laugh, and the jokes and different things, but definitely a character.
Or Bruce would come into my office, I would have to get up and close the door. because of his language and vibrancy. But he was very entertaining.
If you needed one word to describe Bruce, showman would be it. Master of that three-ring circus that was indoor football everywhere.
Bruce was a good representative, a story for everything, and a comment for everything. I think probably the one thing that stood out to me when he talked to me about is he told me, I could prove everybody wrong. I looked like I had to pay admission.
Every week in practice before the game, I'd ask him, what's the score going to be? Because I had to predict the score in the newspaper. And he'd give me a score. And doggone if he wasn't like right there in the neighborhood every time. And one night, I look and Peoria's got the ball, and there's about 30 seconds left in the game. And I realize they're one score away from hitting the score exactly that he told me to predict. And he lines up on the ball, and they throw a pass, it's a touchdown, they hit the score exact. And Bruce looks up at the press box and winks. And that's the whole Pirates era in a nutshell. It was an attitude of, we got this.
During practice, my wife would be sitting there, and all of a sudden Bruce would go, Janice, cover your ears. And then he would unload with a tirade, of every 4-letter, 5-letter, 6-letter word you could ever imagine.
A fun story about him where he made me feel extra good is he told me that when he would go on recruiting trips, sometimes he'd have to meet with the player's family. And when he told them that he had a team dentist that took care of the players, some of the parents, that was the selling point. And he made a joke with me where sometimes you're more important than I am when I'm trying to go recruit these guys. So he always made me feel good. So I really always appreciated that.
Let me tell you about Bruce and the referees, because that was part of a unique part of the entertainment value, if you will, of the sport. Because like you see in the NFL, the coaches are on the sideline and they're trying to yell at them and get their attention. Well, in the arena football, indoor football, the coaches were on the field. So Bruce was right there next to the referees, and so he couldn't help but get into a conversation or an argument or some sort of interaction with the referees at the time. He started going after referees, then the crowd starts going into the game, and then everybody's in it if they weren't already in it before.
The ref would respond, and Bruce would say, I wrote the rule book for this league. I know what I'm talking about. He knew all the rules, and when a ref made a blown call or he perceived it to be a blown call, look out, there were going to be some fireworks. So that was part of it. Then I had a chance to work with him on high school football too, and hear some more Cowdreyisms.
Bruce Cowdrey is the first thing that pops to my mind when I think of the Peoria Pirates. I mean, obviously the guy, I think he could have run for office in Central Illinois. He was so popular. I'm not sure he bought a beer for about 3 or 4 years there. People were probably buying his lunch and dinner everywhere they saw him. And he was, this jolly figure that people loved, and he had one-liners, and he knew everybody. And I just think he was the perfect face of that organization to bring this new product to Central Illinois.
One thing about Coach Cowdrey, I did a lot of things on the side throughout the year. Aside from the coaches show, we did charitable events, and he personally came out and did things with us, made appearances with us. Players did too, but he did personally. I remember one Christmas season, we were raising money for one of the charities, and he came out and dressed up as Santa Claus and hung out with us as a station for hours on end, raising money. He was there for everything that we asked him to do, and considered him a really great friend, and obviously a great coach.
I think almost anyone could honestly say if they were involved with the Pirates at all, their relationship with Bruce Cowdrey was like a love-hate relationship. He could be a crab and a grouch, but he was focused. So it was like, okay, I get it. This is why. And then other times you'd see him and he'd just wrap you up in a great big bear hug.
So getting the opportunity to play for Bruce Cowry was such a great opportunity for me. You look at him from being ahead of his time with recruiting. I've never seen somebody so involved, but look at the wire, see where people were available, and offer them opportunities. I remember Bruce talking about trading people to Fargo. And I'm like, well, what's so bad about Fargo? Well, I went there last year, and I went in a blizzard, and it was the coldest day I ever had in my life. And I'm like, I know what he meant now. I know what he meant when he talked about trading to Fargo.
That's what I meant. I don't think they do it, but I mean, they heard me say Fargo so many times that I think they looked at it like the boogeyman. It was like, no, don't send me there, please.
It's kind of iconic. He's this big figure, this larger-than-life guy that was screaming and hollering, and his face would get red, and he'd jump up and down, and he'd get the officials over, and then if you knew him, you know what kind of gentle person he was, what kind of person, they had a bobblehead. And every time somebody would turn around, Bruce would turn around, somebody would bring him one of those bobbleheads. He hated those bobbleheads. He couldn't stand them. And every time somebody turned around, he'd bring him one. He's like, oh, thank you very much. And he was gracious about it. And then he tried to throw the thing away.
It was well worth it in my time. As I look back, I wouldn't change it for the world. Despite all the hurdles and obstacles you face, I enjoyed my experience. I loved it. Meeting the players, Tim Simpson, I still see every now and then. Recruited his son actually to play for us at Eureka. Eric DeLary coached with me for a year at Eureka. So, built some great relationships and had some great contacts. Will forever be a part of my memories. And I looked at it maybe a little differently. From trying to go on to play somewhere else as opposed to trying to learn and just enjoy the ride and build up for my future.
The charity and the heart of the team was really an amazing part of the community. It was just fantastic.
Pirates, the fans, the cheerleaders, the dancers, all of that was so outrageous. The fans would come in dressed as pirates or holding a fence and a big letter D. Just added to the excitement of the game and the fan interaction. Having the team members involved in the community doing volunteer work, that made a big deal too for the Pirates to interact with the community.
So we should never be anything but excited about the legacy we left because it was a pretty darn good legacy.
I think the legacy is really going to be the friendships that were made. Even a fan could think that they were a friend of the Pirates sitting in the top row because they were so involved with it and the team was so involved.
I think the legacy of the Pirates is we had lightning in a bottle. We had lightning in a bottle for a lot of years. And it attracted families, it attracted the community, it attracted media, it attracted sponsors, and it proved that something new, it was brand new, we didn't know what was going on, that something new can actually bring 9,000 people together in an arena to go crazy.
I think the legacy that's left was the whole idea of the IFL. The IFL was there for the small markets.
They say there's over 4,000 or 5,000 young men that got to play pro football, get a paycheck. The 4 former players have been head coaches in the National Football League. That's pretty impressive in its own right. We had over 400 players play in the NFL. Much less assistant coaches that got opportunity to coach at the pro level. Coaches that were able to elevate to the National Football League after they coached in the Arena League. In some cases, we had a couple former NFL head coaches that really enjoyed coaching arena football. We had a couple that struggled because the game was so different from the outdoor game, but they loved it. They loved the challenge of it. So we had guys who were great coaches of the Canadian League, like Perry Moss, who was also the head coach of Florida State. He was one of the great coaches in arena football.
I truly think the sport was successful in Peoria because of the close and uniqueness of what the team did with the community. With Treasure Life, with just the players, getting out in the community. Half of them worked in the community. We get them jobs. And just the uniqueness of coming down on the field after the game and talking to the players. It just built a family. It really did. And Peoria embraced it. The players embraced it. And showed when we sold out every game. One thing that we did as general managers, we would get together with Rocky and from the Chiefs and Bart from the Rivermen, and we helped each other. We had similar sponsors. The Paradise, whoever it was, they all sponsored all the teams. So we also backed each other. We took players to games. We helped out. I remember some of our football players actually would do security here at the Civic Center for concerts. It brought people together, and it brought money into the downtown. Was revitalized. I mean, we were huge back then.
Well, obviously they had to have a job because they weren't getting paid a whole lot to play the game in that league. So Gary Porter and Johnny Johnson both worked for me selling cars. They did a pretty good job. They were juggling. It's like being a full-time, Division I athlete with all the different things that you got to participate in to be on the team, I'm sure. So they were like celebrities at the dealership. To the other employees and certainly to the customers. I mean, we'd bring customers over to them and, introduce them and stuff like that. And people wanted to buy a car from them because they were, the quarterback on the team, and both very good at what they did. And we used to have a lot of meet and greets out at the dealership too. And people would just flock to come meet the team, hang out with them. We'd every once in a while sell a car because of it, but that wasn't the main thing. It was they were here to see the Pirates and get to know them and be, they were part of the community, and they wanted to meet them and, get to know them.
So from a community perspective, one of the things I really remember is the Treasure Life. And again, such a great program to reach out to individuals in the community. And I remember kids tell me, yeah, I got nominated for this. And I can't remember the kid's name, but he's like, oh, I won it. I get to go to the game this week and I get to do this and that. And just the excitement. And, I apologize, I don't remember them all, but, teamwork, respect, education. Again, as you go through there, just all those key attributes that you want to see. And again, our players, we were a little ornery sometimes, but we lived those type of mottos when we were off the field. When we were in the community, that's how we acted. And when they embraced us, again, we hugged them even harder.
One of the things that I look back at when I think of the Peoria Pirates is that Treasure Life program. To be able to impact how many kids, every home game for the run of the Pirates, we brought a young person and their family down onto the field, recognized them for what they did. We brought them onto the TV show, talked to them about who they were, what they did, where they're from. That was an experience that they would not have had the Peoria Pirates not been here and had that program not been around.
From time to time, I think we would talk to the coaches off the air, and I think Bruce Cowry knew that I was a high school kicker. And so on the air one day, he kind of, as a dare, said, yeah, you ought to come out and kick an extra point with us one day. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll do that, without much thought. And it didn't take much time afterwards to figure out that, boy, that was dumb. I probably shouldn't have done that. But I was a big fan of George Plimpton growing up and the Paper Lion and, participatory journalism. So that was kind of my thing on the morning mix. So when I got a chance to do it, I did say yes. And it turned out to be really a fun thing. People to this day remember it, which is kind of cool because that was 2000. And so that's almost a quarter century now going on, and people still remember it.
Peoria TV personality Doc Watson. He's going to try the straight-on kick. It's up and it's good. He might get a contract. Oh, man.
My wife made a crack that she's never seen me that happy in my life. And it was because it was part nerves, and just being happy that I made it, happy that it was over.
One of the pictures we had, we did a special section every year on the Pirates, and after the 17-0 season and the championship, we also did one to wrap up the year, and that picture is iconic to me. It's Ken Bowie on the field with champagne spray suspended in midair all around him. Just that celebration and watching that happen down there. And again, understanding that for those guys, that's their Super Bowl. This is, for many of them, the highest level they were ever going to play at, and how important it was to them and how much they respected the game. That memory really sticks with me. I wish we could all go back and spend a practice together and a game.
The 17-0 season was a time, not just for personally as a football player, a unique time where you were able to achieve perfection, regardless of whatever level. I don't care if you're in the NFL, CFL, XFL, you played at Pop Warner. To be perfect is rare, right? And not only to be perfect, but to know you were going to win and have no question that you were going to win. That was special. Once again, the talent that was there, it seemed unfair at times. So that was really memorable. It just seemed like just a juggernaut, just like we were unstoppable.
The Pirates made Peoria a unique and really pumped up sports market for the years they were here. From the perspective of someone who covers sports, there wasn't a better place to work because of it. There were an abundance of storylines, and and characters involved in this team. And when I think of their legacy, that's what I think of. How they put Peoria on the map as a major sports epicenter.
I was hoping to influence my children to play, right? They were still little. Like when I was playing here, Eric, who's in the NFL now, plays for the Colts, was about 2 to 3 years old. Marcellus, who's a senior offensive tackle, should be drafted, plays for Missouri. My son is a soon-to-be senior, Division I athlete on both sports. What Peoria did for me, I still had the ability to play in the NFL and go play in other places, but I had a problem with being away from my family. This was the first place that I truly was happy making the least amount of money because I was able to be with my family. And this gave me the opportunity to continue to play, but literally be with my family on a day-to-day basis. Well, as far as the uniqueness of the entrance, that was the moment, the switch where it was time to go. The light was there. If the arena was dark, the light was shining right at the entrance, and you could do pretty much whatever you wanted to do within reason. In particular, I remember, I think it was the championship game where I got myself pretty wound up, and the other team was blocking. You know, it's kind of disrespectful. Like you shouldn't block the runway, but the guys were standing right at the runway, and I used to kind of walk and trot and do a couple of things. But that night, I got down in like a 40, like a sprinter stance, and just took off and just, pow! And then it was just on from there. And I was like, man, this is not a game. We about to really tear you all off.
My kids all grew up in the Pirates. My grandson got to ride on Jim Foster's Pirate boat.
For 10 years there, we had players come into our house a couple times a week, you know, sharing meals. When they had road trips, my wife would pack box lunches, you know, that the players would take with them. It was the personal touch to this day. We still communicate with several of them. And I mean, we had some great individuals that we became personal friends with.
I would say that not only as a cheerleader, but as a member of the community, I participated with this football team. I had a son on the team. So we became friends. We supported him. He was from Wisconsin, got a job locally. We'd have him for dinner. We made his goodie bag for the weekend when he traveled. And it was just a way to get involved and support Peoria.
I can't say enough about how much I remember about the Pirates and working with John Venturi. He was so much of a help for me on the broadcast from his football standpoint, being a state championship coach at Washington High. He helped me a lot to understand a little bit more about football than I already knew. You know, Bruce had a lot of great assistant coaches that was with him, but one that really comes to mind, a local guy, and Jim Donahue, Nails, his nickname. If they wanted to say something, they couldn't say anything to coach, so they talked to Nails about it. And so Nails was kind of maybe been a go-between, if you will, kind of a sounding board between the players and Coach Cowdrey.
Well, we're in Hawaii, and there's a lot of distractions in Hawaii. There's the beach and the bikinis and lots of stuff, tourist stuff to do. So Coach was on a business trip. Coach Cowdrey wanted to win, and we went there to beat them and to go home. And he had warned everybody prior to that, like, hey, no scooters, don't go sit on the beach for 6 hours. And about 2 minutes later, you see about 3 guys on a red scooter just going zip, 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 and almost waving at him, like, you know. And he was not very happy about that, but I think we did get to win that trip.
Another vivid memory I have about the Pirates was when we went to Hawaii. Tony Johnson and I think, both contacted Ray LaHood. He arranged for us to have a boat and take them to Pearl Harbor. I remember not only how moving that was for me personally, but to see these big 350, 380-pound guys just in silence, realizing what had happened there and seeing the names on the wall in front of us.
Because I made friends with assistant coach Tony Johnson and Coach Cowdrey and a lot of the players, the boosters, the supporters, it kind of became like this little cult family where everybody was just so excited to be a part of it, and you got to know each other, and especially working kind of behind the scenes, not only being there game days, but the behind the scenes part of it, you got to feel that community connection, and you felt that the friendships that formed from it, because it was something new that we were all doing for the first time. And I would say when I think of the Peoria Pirates, I think of that community, friendship, connection, and just all around fun.
Family and friendships, it's incredible. You know, we didn't have social media back then, but now, again, as we connect and we see everybody, it has just been awesome to see them grow into dads, grandpas. It seemed like a short amount of time, a couple years, but the relationships and friendship have lasted almost a quarter of a century.
I don't think you can make that happen on purpose. I think it happens, well, I use the word magic. I think it happens organically and just grows up, and you see it and you go, this is something special, and let's hang on to it as long as we can hang on to it.
I didn't even know what month I was. I was August, which is great. It's my daughter's birthday month. She actually ran across this calendar because I'm on the cover, and she, hi. Here's yeah, so she had plenty to say, but you know what? It was fun.
It was fun.
And we sold the snot out of these things.
I think the fact that the team involved the fans, I got to pick a play. I forget what it was even called. I am like the last person to pick a play, but they did it, and it was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm involved.
Well, and you know, I remember her play, and I'd always tell them before we'd run it, I said, now I changed it just a little bit. And I remember Paula on the bench with me. She goes, okay, that's fine. And I remember her play did very, very well. I mean, just really well.
But just the legacy of this organization and the fact that I am still connected to so many people through this organization, that has meant the world to me. And I would do it all over again, and I would wear those darn go-go boots one more time just to meet all these people and to make these friendships that have lasted really quite a lifetime.
And one of the things I'd like to do on behalf of all the Peoria Pirates family and team that have been throughout this here is thank you. Thank you so much for opening up your houses to us, opening up your restaurants, your golf place, just letting us be part of the community and part of the family. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I think we made the most of it.
Well, I tell you what, the one thing I would like to say, thanks to all the fans, people of Peoria, everyone that was associated with the Pirates organization and team, and thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.